If you've ever played Tomb Raider, you've probably locked the butler in the freezer. This prevents him from following us everywhere. This characteristic is rather strange because in this game only Winston is capable of such a feat. Certainly other enemies can follow Lara throughout the level, but they must maintain a proximity. Once outdistanced, they stay in place because the rooms do not remain constantly loaded. Between each room there is an invisible portal. When we cross it, the next room is loaded while the previous one disappears. Everything inside remains in a static state as if time had stopped, while the angle of the walls and the rendering distance make it unnoticeable. The famous Croft Manor also has this portal system, however Winston always finds Lara. Maybe he is coded differently, he could be teleported to the nearest portal on every load, but this does not correspond to what we observe, because the further we move away from it, the longer he takes to reach us. Also, if he was able to teleport, he wouldn't get stuck in the freezer. We could assume that Lara leaves an invisible trail behind her and he just follows it. We can also turn around and see that he makes all his trips on foot, but how does he know which path to choose? This question can be answered with the maze. In this example, I move away from him as much as possible before entering the maze by taking the left path, then I hide on the right. If Winston is tracking Lara, he should take the left path, and if he is able to locate her, he will take the shorter right path. The result is clear: Winston is programmed to walk to Lara via the shortest route. This is where things get creepy. If Winston just smelled Lara's perfume, he would take the other route. Here he knows where she is. Without this freezer, Lara could go anywhere, no matter how far. Sooner or later the sound of his cups would be heard. The only explanation is simple: Winston possesses a power that is not human. We must keep in mind that Winston only appears in the second game. This is an important detail, because in the first opus there is another creature capable of knowing where Lara is, the Doppelganger. We know this because this monster can copy all of Lara's moves without looking at her. The connection is mental. Of course we kill it in the lava, but is it really the case? Its legs are broken, but if we look closely, the head and the arms are still working. Plus Natla, who also fell in the lava, quickly regenerated. Furthermore, all mutants explode on death, except this one. That should be a conclusive indication that this thing is still alive. The Atlantean mutants do not seem to fear the heat either, but rather the cold. It is curious that the only way to block Winston is to lock him in the freezer, a freezer that contains huge pieces of meat. We say it's a freezer because this small room is in the kitchen, but is it common to install an automatic door that activates with a switch? Wouldn't it rather be an armored enclosure? Just like Winston, the kitchen did not exist in the first game. Was the freezer added to be able to block Winston, or is that a coincidence? Any other room with a button could have achieved this goal. Why only a freezer? During the survey you associated Winston with horror. If we lock him in the freezer, it's because he freaks us out. This is exactly what we do with the Doppelganger by locking it behind a trapdoor. We will also notice that Winston does not speak. He would like to, but he can only grumble. He's just there, watching us, without a sound. There is something scary about this attitude. Usually a butler offers tea at specific times of the day, then steps aside and remains discreet. Here he insists, and strangely Lara seems to tolerate this behavior. Could Winston be the Doppelganger? This assumption is certainly exaggerated, but when we think about it, Lara has not recovered any relics from the first game. The Skion is pulverized. It is even its explosion that destroys the island. The one visible in the secret room of the third game is necessarily a replica. There are also the bonus levels in Tomb Raider Unfinished Business with the Stronghold and the Hive, which takes place right after Natla's death. So in the lower part of the pyramid, we know this because the level starts with the big slide, the last room before the final cutscene. The Skion explodes at the top. The Doppelganger disappears long before that and could very well have escaped that way. But why would this mutant have fled and not the others? Wasn't Atlantis its home? To understand, we must remember that Natla wanted to replace humanity with a more evolved species. She was banished for using the power of the gods for her experiments. Perhaps the Doppelganger was a prototype, an artificial creature in every way superior to humans, but incomplete. Natla would have built this room in order to put her creation in contact with a human, to teach it intelligence. A bit like babies imitate their parents to learn. Because when analyzing the situation, the doppelganger could only escape by perfectly copying someone's movements. The room was not intended to prevent Lara from passing, it was a test to train the creature. The lava-filled trapdoor and the whole mechanism only make sense if we consider it to be the exit for the doppelganger. This exit was the guarantee that it has copied a human intelligent enough to solve the puzzle, the best way to maximize its survival in the new world. But something unexpected happened. The Scion was destroyed. Whether Natla was dead or not, the hive collapsed. In this mess, the doppelganger would have followed its instinct and escaped from the pyramid, thanks to the talents copied from Lara. After the explosion, the creature had lost its queen, with no one left to serve, thinking itself alone in the world, but with the certainty that Lara had survived and with the ability to find her. Lara was the perfect subject to copy to guarantee a superior lineage. Moreover, in Tomb Raider Anniversary, which is the remake of the game, Natla asks Lara to collaborate with her. It's hard to imagine Lara actually ruling the new world. This proposal comes after Natla saw her abilities in the adventure, and suggests that she had something planned, to use Lara as a mold for her future mutants. Perhaps Natla had even recruited 3 adventurers to define which would be the most fit for survival. But how could she have cloned Lara? There are 2 hypotheses, either through the power of the Scion, or by recovering her DNA present on the artifact that she recovered before ordering her brutes to kill the original body. The doppelganger would then be a mutant clone of Lara destined to survive, but it wasn't meant to meet her in the pyramid in the training room, because Natla didn't know that she was still alive, so Lara trained her own clone. It's even possible that the doppelganger was supposed to face humans in this place to prove its superiority, but the operation failed because the connection with Lara was too perfect. In a hive, the bees have an instinctive loyalty to their creator queen, and defend the colony at the risk of their lives. In the room we can see that the 2 other mutants attack Lara. But for the doppelganger, things are different. From its point of view, Lara is as much its creator as Natla, and therefore it cannot attack her, unless Lara asks it to. After the destruction of Atlantis, Lara returned home, and one day while taking her shower she noticed that her reflection was slightly different. She put the mutant in her freezer with the other pieces of meat so it wouldn't attract attention, and then reinforced the door. Finally, when the doppelganger had mastered its powers, she ordered it to mimic the appearance of another human to remain inconspicuous while allowing it to do its duty, serve its queen. All this remains of course hypothetical. It is extremely unlikely that Winston and the doppelganger are the same person. However, some details remain suspect. We can explain that Winston does not exist in the first game for strictly technical reasons, but he's clearly there in the remake, so he can't be the doppelganger, unless we assume he died at the end of the first adventure and Lara replaced him with the mutant. That would also justify his different behavior. Except it's not the same character but the one from the Legend timeline. We know that because the original Winston has a much different official backstory. This backstory dates from 2006, in Editions Atlas the official fact files. His last name is Jeeves. It's a reference to a character in a novel who is a valet. He would have been born in 1924 and would have participated in a battle during the Second World War, so he was 18 years old. It is also specified that he is 158 centimeters tall, the minimum height to become a soldier and drive a vehicle. It is relatively small for an Irishman. These details were revealed 10 years after the release of the first game, but also 1 year before the remake, as if to indicate a significant change in this character. It also says that he would have been wounded in battle, as if to justify the fact that he does not speak. He is then linked to the Croft family. So why doesn't he appear in the first game? Incoherence or an attempt to hide his real identity? It was only in 2015 that Nathan McCree, the composer and writer of the music of the first 3 games, confessed that he had voiced Winston. Why did he wait 18 years to reveal this information? Could it be a desire to perpetuate the mystery around this character? We may never know. But it would be super cool for Lara to live with the Last Relic of Atlantis. After all, she lives in a mansion, almost a castle. Why couldn't it hide a monster that only she could control? Besides, when the manor is besieged at the end of the second game, Winston does not participate in the battle, nor is he in the freezer. Where was he? Another addition of this game is the maze that protects a treasure, but in the myths the labyrinth can also be used to hide a half-human creature. During the attack the gangsters patrol the whole area, but they don't enter the maze. Maybe they came across something hiding there, a thing with big eyes to see in the dark. The meal is served.